Hello, welcome back to the Bar Gym Reviews. Today, do you want to buy a gym, but you're not sure what you can splurge on? Today, I'm going to compare 10 essential items you should put in your gym, cheap versus premium. Stick around to find out all 10. All right, so first, we're going to build a foundation. We got to build a gym. We're going to start from the ground up. So, first thing first is flooring. Cheap option number one is going to be horse stall mats, right? So we're looking at 4 by 6 feet, um, approximately, depending on your area, about $50 each. I think that's the most economical version I could really find that serves its purpose of protecting your floors. Then you're going to look at the expensive option. For me, for this comparison, I'm going to use Rogue tiles. Now, when you're looking at this comparison, it's really hard to differentiate the size. So they're 24 inch by 24 inch or 2 feet by 2 foot, 1.5 inch thick versus our cheap option, which is 4 by 6 feet at 3/4 inch thickness. So price comparison, we have $50 for our horse stall mats per 4 by 6. And then we have Rogue tiles, which are 24 by 24, and they come in a 2-pack for about $82 currently. So when you do the math on that, it's pretty similar in price. So for me personally, for availability, because of the shipping cost, I like to go with the horse stall mats. So that's what I have in my gym. I have 18 horse stall mats. They work great. They suppress enough of the weight dropping on the actual ground. I deadlift on it. I don't have a dedicated deadlift platform, and it works great for me. So if I were to choose between the two, and I'm thinking about shipping costs and tax, because for Rogue specifically, especially, there is not free shipping on this item. Then I'm going to go with horse stall mats because they do the same thing for a cheaper price. No reason to overthink this one. All right, so next is going to be adjustable benches. So when you're looking for a cheap option here, you're looking at probably a Flybird bench, maybe one of the Titan benches. Now, if it were me, Flybird, looking at the reviews, looking at what some people say, some people have great reviews. It's really cheap. It's like about $150, right? Maybe $200. It's still adjustable, still has some angles. However, I question the durability and the stability of that product. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, in our premium market, we're looking more like Rogue, maybe Rep. I know Rogue has manta rays right now. That's really expensive, especially if you get the foot catch. We're talking like $1,200 in the $1,000 range. So I'm not sure if that's really worth it. So for me, I have the Rogue Adjustable Bench 3.0. For me, this works great. It's very stable. It's kind of what I'm looking for. But some things that you need to weigh out when you're making your decision, right? How much weight are you going to use, right? If you're somebody that's a heavier person already, or you're going to use and push heavy weights, you might want to get something that is pretty stable, right? So I'm looking at, the AB 5000 or maybe the 4000 series, or maybe even the Nighthawk, or maybe something like the Rogue Adjustable Bench 3.0. So for me, I want you to really think about what your needs are for your bench. And I'm going to lean towards the premium here, right? Safety is key when in a home gym, especially if you train by yourself. And having a bench that you can rely on is going to be very, very important. All right, so next, I want to walk through barbells. Now, I have a variety of barbells here, specialty barbells. For me, I like a power bar, but if we're talking in general, cheap versus expensive. So a cheap Olympic bar you might look at as maybe like a cat barbell. You can find other barbells on Amazon from a lot of companies that basically just manufacture over in China. And you're looking at like $100, maybe even less than $100 sometimes. You do want to kind of look for like a 7-foot barbell, in my opinion, so you have enough length and sleeve length. For me, cheap seems like an option that you might want to go for, right? Now, looking at the premium options, right? You're looking like a Eleiko. Eleiko is too expensive. If we're gonna be honest, I mean, I'm gonna give it away right away here. It's too expensive. It's $1,000, $800, $900. Now, for you, if you are someone that is gonna do Olympic training and you compete and you want the exact specifications for your competition, yeah, maybe an Eleiko barbell makes sense for you. However, for the average gym goer, there's a balance that needs to be struck here, right? So, for a cat barbell, I've never used one, but and the reviews are kind of high. They're 4.5 stars or higher. Um, However, if you've never put your hands on a barbell and looked for knurling, then you probably won't be able to tell. And I'll get some close-ups on the knurling. Um, I'll put it on the screen here. There is a vast difference in quality of construction, but also your guarantees. For me, I'm honestly a Rogue fan. I only have one rep barbell, which is not a barbell; it's a specialty barbell, which is a the safety squat, and I love it. It's got great quality, right? Rogue has great quality, but they have the lifetime guarantee, right? I can say that I confidently trust that I'm never going to ruin this bar beyond use, right? It's going to get beat up a little bit, sure. It might have a little rattle in the sleeves here, after a while, but it's gonna work. So I feel like the verdict here is you can't cheap out, but we don't have to go super expensive. To get premium quality, we don't need to spend $1,000. We can spend something like $350 or $300 even, up to maybe $400. Like this bar is about $400 with the Cerakote version, but you can get a bare steel bar, and make or E-coat version, and it can be much cheaper. It's totally worth it, in my opinion, to get something with a guarantee that has the customer service base like Rep or Rogue, or maybe even Texas Power Bar, to justify purchasing it for your gym when you build your gym. All right, so next we're going to look at weight plates. So there's plenty of cheap options and plenty of premium options here, right? You got everything from cap barbell plates, cast iron, all the way up to maybe some Eleiko urethane plates, right? So I want you to think about a few things or consider a few things when making that purchase or thinking about this purchase. Number one, do you need sound suppression? Does your environment mean that you need quiet weight plates, right? So you probably don't want to go with cast iron, okay? So for me, the choice is simple, okay? Weight is weight, right? At the end of the day, weight is weight. But I want you to think about your environment as well. Is it going to be somewhere that it's going to rust, right? So you might get something like cap that doesn't have a premium coating, and it might not last as long, right? Now, for me, I went somewhere in the middle. I went cast iron. I specifically had it for my look in my gym. I wanted the deep dish. I wanted the lip here, to grab it, and I wanted that dark black finish. So for you, you need to figure out what category you belong to. Do you belong to weight is weight, put it on the bar and lift it? Or do you want a specific type of weight, strongman, CrossFitter? It all depends on your sport or what you need it for and what you're going to get. So if you're going to go with the cheap option, just know that there's not a guarantee it's going to last over time. So for bumper plates, right, you might get the crumb rubber, but those tend to kind of wear out and fall apart, right? They also vibrate a little bit more when you bounce them, and sometimes that can cause things to break over time, right? If you're going to look more competition plates because you're going to be in lifting competitions, then lift with the materials or lift with the gear that you are going to lift with in those competitions. So for me, I think it falls somewhere in the middle, and it totally depends on your preference and your environment. All right, so the next piece of equipment that's going to be essential to building your gym beyond the barbell and beyond the weight plates is going to be dumbbells. So cheap, economic version is going to be, no matter what, an adjustable dumbbell. Now, there's different levels to this. Adjustable dumbbells have come a long way. I have something kind of towards the expensive end, but not as expensive as it can get. But you can go all the way down to maybe like a lock spin version, where you're lock spin, put the weight on, okay, one side at a time, kind of old school. And those can run pretty cheap. You could also kind of go towards the Bowflex route, right? Get up to 50 pounds. Those come in at a pretty economical price. I believe they're like $500 or so. Power blocks also have a large range as well, depending on how heavier the weight's going to go. You go something with like the Dumbbells that I have here, all the way up to the rep pepins, right? Or rep plus pepins or times pepins. So when thinking about it, those are your adjustable dumbbell market. For me, I would put adjustable dumbbells in the cheap market altogether. Now, for our premium options, we're talking about dumbbells, a whole dumbbell set, right? So when you think about that, you're going to need storage. You're going to need, you know, you're going to need to know what weight you want to go to. You want to go 5 pounds up to 100, up to 50, up to 80, up to 120. So you got to know that, and just know that it gets very, very expensive, right? So if you're going to get hex dumbbells, right, you can go with some cheaper companies. You can go with the more expensive companies like maybe Rogue or Rep, but they're all very expensive, maybe 3 or 4 times more expensive even in some cases. I know I looked it up once for Rogue urethane dumbbells just because I was curious, and I was going to spend more on that than I was on a power rack. So for me, the choice is clear. Get an adjustable dumbbell. Make it specific to your training. If you want to go up to 50 pounds, you don't need to go over 50 pounds, then you get an even cheaper option, right? If you want something that has the quick kind of changing mechanism like a Nuabell or maybe the Rep ones, then you're going to pay a little bit more, okay? But it's still not a crazy astronomical price like buying a set of actual dumbbells. So for me, the verdict is very clear. Adjustable dumbbells win in the cheap option category. All right, so next for your gym, you need to consider power rack, squat stand, or whatever else you may need, a competition style bench they need to consider, right? So for me, I have a Rogue RM6. However, there's plenty of cheap options that provide plenty of stability, plenty of safety, and do the job that you're looking for, right? So on the cheap end, you might be looking into maybe a Titan series, T3 series. You might look into, PRX. You might look into maybe Rep, or you might even say, I still want something like Rep or Rogue, but maybe there are lower options like, the PR 4000 or the Rogue Monster Light series, right? So a few things to consider when it comes to cheap and expensive. With cheap, you're probably going to get black powder coat. You might have other powder coat options, but it's probably just going to be black powder coat. When it comes to a more premium option or more expensive option, you're probably looking at different colors. You're probably looking at Cerakote. So your options for aesthetics are definitely much greater. Another thing is strength and durability, right? So for a cheap rack, especially if you go really cheap and which I wouldn't suggest, something on Amazon, we're talking under $300. There might be a safety concern or structural integrity concern. You might have to bolt things down pretty securely to a wall, to a floor, compared to something like that's pretty stable, like a PR 5000 or a Rogue Monster series, like an RM6, like I have. So there's a lot to think about when it comes to durability and safety as well. Another thing to consider for the cheap and expensive options is the ecosystem, right? That's what everything in the modern gym, the modern home gym market, it's all about the ecosystem, right? So you're going to feel pigeonholed to go with a certain ecosystem, right? So for me, I'm pretty much stuck with mostly Rogue attachments, right? Now, there's other companies that work with Rogue that I get lucky with, like Mutant Metals over here and their Ultimate Dip attachment. However, you kind of buy into that ecosystem, right? So if you're going to be with Rep, you're probably going to stick with Rep. If you have, Rep PR 4000 or Rogue Monster Light attachments, then you're going to be stuck with that whole size and whole spacing, okay? So truly, if there's one thing that you want to do a ton of research on for your gym, is the rack. So there's way more I could go into on a power rack right now, but things to consider. If you're not going to lift super heavy weights, right, I would probably go with the cheaper option, right? If you don't care about the aesthetics, if you don't care if it's just plain black powder coat, then go the cheap route. For me, I like the aesthetics. I like the dark blue that I have, that navy blue. but also I like to have the safety, and realistically it has storage. I like the ecosystem. I like the amount of attachments that I can add to my Rogue RM6, including my belt squat back here, which has been a great addition. Check out my review video for that if you're interested. But the possibilities are endless. There's a lot of all-in-ones nowadays, so the options are really out there. So please do your research. If it were me, I want to buy once, cry once when it comes to this category, and I'm going to go with the more expensive option, but doesn't mean you need to go to the stratosphere. All right, so another piece of equipment that I feel like is essential or can be very versatile in gym is resistance bands. So for me, I got the more expensive bands. I got the Rogue Monster bands here. I do have one set that I think I randomly got off Amazon or maybe bought at Walmart or something. And I will say, for accommodating resistance, honestly, I think the cheap band works pretty well. I do know that this is made from virgin layered synthetic or latex, so it's probably a little bit more durable. It's probably going to last a little bit longer. It's probably not going to stretch unevenly like this cheap one will be. However, as much as I utilize them or I don't utilize them in the gym, I think that it's pretty safe to say that the cheaper version is probably the better version. Um, and then if you pair that with something like these Rogue handles, they're band handles, you open them up and then you put the band inside, and you can do various exercises like bicep curls. You can even turn it into kind of like a functional trainer, do some cable crossovers, tricep pushdowns. There's kind of a endless possibilities when it comes to resistance bands. I only use it really for accommodating resistance, and I truly feel the verdict here is you could totally get away with going cheap when it comes to resistance bands. All right, so next is going to be your cardio options. Now, there are many cheap options and there's also expensive options. So, looking at the cheap, we can go as cheap as free, right? You can run, you can walk, right? You could find a place to go train. Um, Honestly, that's as cheap as it gets, in my opinion, right? Now, there are other things that you can add that are cheap, right? Something like a jump rope, also very cheap, right? So, um, we could talk $5, $20, or you can go as crazy as these. I think these are, closer to like the $80 range. But cardio is really important for your overall health, right? So doing cardio is important, but also can be very, very cheap. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, there are plenty of expensive options as well, right? So um, I think most houses like to have the investment of like a treadmill or an elliptical. Both can be very expensive, both can be very valuable, right? For me, I live in Ohio, which can be cold a very good portion of the year. And it's not the most fun to go outside and go for a walk, especially in my morning routine. I like to get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning and get a walk in. If it could be negative 20 degrees. I don't want to go out there and walk in negative 20 degrees. So I'll walk in here, right? So that could be also a great piece to keep you on track with your cardio. So you could still go though even higher, right? So this is a Proform um, XP 542 treadmill. It's kind of getting up there in age. It was free to me. However, this is a pretty viable option. But you could go all the way up to those manual curve treadmills like Salt Runners. And we're talking 3, 4, maybe even up to $5,000 or $6,000 for a piece of cardio equipment, even one that's is not even belt driven. It is driven by you, right? And bearings. So um, it can go all the way up. Concept 2 has phenomenal products. However, they're very expensive. But if you like to row and you like to ski erg, then maybe that's something that's worth it to you. If it's specific type of training, maybe you're doing CrossFit and you need rowers and you need ski ergs, then obviously that's something that you probably want for your gym for your competitions, right? Or for your goals. For me, I'm perfectly fine with the treadmill. If I had to choose, if there's one thing that I'm gonna spend less money on, it's probably cardio equipment, just because you can get a lot done with an old-fashioned walk, run, or just doing jump ropes. So the verdict: cheap, but keep it specific to your training and your needs. If you are a cardio athlete, then buy more cardio and spend the money. All right. So next, we're going to talk about storage, right? So you could go as low as DIY, get some 2x4 and some 4x4s, build it yourself, and you can get a lot accomplished with that. So I'm not knocking that. I think that's a great solution for many of us, especially if you're going to go with like a dumbbell rack or something. It's pretty easy to measure out, put it at an angle, paint it whatever you want to paint it, and it can look good, be durable, and it does the job, right? Uh, but you could also go all the way up to maybe some rogue monster storage. We're talking thousands of dollars here. You can put storage on your rack. There's a lot of storage options for a lot of items. So I'm going to just be kind of a middle ground guy here, which I know is going to make people upset. I'm going to go with something like wall control here because it gets my things off the ground and on the wall, clears up the clutter, and I like to present the pieces that I've bought. So for me, if you have cable attachments, this is probably your best solution possible. Each one of these panels, now these are the Signature Series panels, the vertical ones. They come in at about $50 a piece. And then you can get a variety of hooks that are pretty cost effective as well. So I think this is, if you're comparing it to some of the Rogue and Rep storage options that they have right now, this is, I would consider pretty cheap, at least low end of the mid range. So know what you want to store. Okay, so if it's cable attachments or is it barbells? So when you're looking at storage, the biggest thing is, is it going to be functional? Do you have the place measured out? And then how much stuff can you put on it realistically, right? And then for me, I wanted to complete the look of my gym, so that is why I went with wall control. So for this one, it is a very difficult verdict to kind of declare here. So I'm going to stay middle of the road. I'm going to say I would definitely endorse something like a wall control unit, but also in rack storage is fine if you have a bigger rack, like I have an RM6, or if you have a Rep PR5000, or some of those things at PRX, you can put a lot of weight storage on there. But if you can't, something that might be really useful for you is like a weight tree or something like that. Okay. So for me, I think storage is worth it only if it's worth it for you. All right. So last but not least, when considering home gym, cheap versus expensive, it's kind of the extras, right? So I couldn't come up with a perfect category. So I want to think maybe motivation, inspiration, extras, music. I'm not really sure what to name this category other than extras. So for me, I have a few extras in my gym. I don't have enough time to explain all of them, but a few things that I think are kind of worth it. So number one is going to be some sort of scale, right? You can go really cheap with this. You can go buy a Walmart scale, or you can go kind of expensive. I have a smart scale from Renfro, tracks my weight, does my BMI, all that good stuff, so I can track things over time. Another great investment is some sort of sound system. Now, this is a Google Mini. I have a Google Max. I have several Google Minis that are kind of spread out throughout. And I think this is a good middle ground option. You could just also have one sound bar or Bluetooth speaker that you listen to, or headphones, right? Depending on your environment and what you want for your training. But you could also upscale all the way to like a Sonos surround sound home movie theater system, right? So kind of wherever your desires are there and what you want is kind of where you should have your audio equipment. And then another one that I think can be really cost effective, but really depends on you, right? Is motivation or like the aesthetics of your gym. For me, the equipment speaks for itself. I personally buy once, cry once. I love the look of my equipment. That's aesthetically pleasing to me. But also things like my crooked Michigan flag. I'm sure some of you have noticed. Um, I it's a team that I love, a university that I love, and I have it up in my gym. Right? I have a Michigan pennant. I also have an American flag around. But also, if you're a person that is motivated by quotes, inspirational quotes, or pictures of bodybuilders or athletes or whatever, then put those things up in your gym. So I think those can be really cost-effective ways to kind of, upgrade your gym and make them motivational, inspiring, and just more aesthetically pleasing. But ultimately, it comes up to you. What do you want in your gym? What are the extras that you want? What do you consider extra? Or are you a minimalist and you don't want anything, right? Do you not need decorations? Do you not need things on your wall? Do you not need the hangers and different storage options? So there's a lot of things that are considered extra in this category. For me, this is the verdict here for cheap versus expensive or cheap versus premium. Um, totally depends on you. For me, the extras are kind of on the cheaper side because I like to spend money on my equipment. So do what you want for your gym, okay, and then enjoy it. All right. So at the end of the day, cheap versus expensive, what are you buying, right? For me, looking at my gym and reflecting on the pieces that I've bought, there's definitely some where I wish I would have spent a little less money, and then some that I'm totally fine with the extra purchase, right? Maybe not my wife, but I am. So let's start with the flooring. The flooring, let's go cheap, right? Horsehall mats, they do a great job. They do exactly what the expensive option does. If it were me, adjustable bench wise, somewhere in the middle. I would say maybe upper end of middle, but somewhere in the middle. I'm very happy with my Rogue adjustable bench 3.0, but honestly, I've flirted with the idea of like, a rep Nighthawk, but I've also flirted with the idea of going up to a Rogue Man Array, which I know I would literally be murdered for. Next, with our barbells and weight plates, barbells, I think that lifetime guarantee from Rogue is really what drew my attention, and knowing that it's gonna last, right? Buy equipment that lasts, okay? But also, you don't need to go as high as a Lego. You don't need to spend $1,000 on a bar or even a specialty bar, okay? You can get plenty of versatility in your training and get enough in your training with just a basic barbell or a basic power bar, but I wouldn't cheap out on the cheap Amazon or the Cat barbell. When it comes to weight plates now, that's totally up to you and what you're looking for. So iron versus, rubber. I would say for the rubber, don't buy the cheap rubber. I don't want it to fall apart on you, right? For iron, I think iron's iron, right? I think you can do well with what you have in iron plates. I think it's always going to be a good option to go on the cheaper end there. But if you are training specifically for a competition, I would just buy the weights that are in that competition, whether that's calibrated or urethane calibrated, whatever you need for that option. When it comes to dumbbells, it's pretty simple for me. Adjustable is the king. And adjustables, yes, can get expensive, right? I know, the rep times Pepin, they get up there over $1,200 or $1,300, and who knows, that could go up even more later on after this video. For me though, find a good, reliable, adjustable dumbbell. I personally like my Nuobells because they're quick to adjust, but there's durability concerns. But it is nothing compared to the thousands and thousands of dollars you would spend buying dumbbells and dumbbell storage. So for that, definitely save your money. Go cheaper. Go with the adjustable dumbbells. When it comes to power racks, um, I think the power rack, it's the centerpiece of the gym. It's something that is the wow piece. When you show off your gym, that's the first thing people are going to look at is the power rack, the squat stand, whatever you have. Now, don't overbuy though, right? If you are comfortable with a Titan T3 series or something on the cheaper end, then go for it. I would stay away from the Amazon. I would stay away from Amazon in general on this, right? But if you want to go to the upper end and you want to do a Rogue Monster Series or the Rep PR 5000, then go for it. If you're into more of the all-in-ones because you're really drawn into the new sensation that is Smith machines, then go for it. Just do your research beforehand and realize that you're buying into that ecosystem, and you really got to do the research on the attachments that come with it, and maybe trust a company that you know is going to be there for the long haul, so you can trust that there's going to be more attachments that come out as you progress. For resistance bands, at the end of the day, I use mine as accommodating resistance mostly. I don't use it for stretching or anything like that, but I feel like the cheap bands can do just as much as the expensive bands. Now, over time, maybe there's more longevity with the Monster Rogue bands compared to something you find on Amazon, but we're talking 2, 3, maybe 4 times the price. So for me, cheap's the way to go for the resistance bands. Now for cardio, I picked a cheap option. Personally, my cardio, my treadmill, it was free to me. But at the end of the day, I would probably spend a few $100 if I really wanted to, because I do enjoy my walks on an incline in the morning, and occasionally doing some runs. But also, you can get a lot done by just running and walking outside, finding a park to go to, or a friend, or maybe a significant other to go on a walk with, right? and that'll do just as much cardio as maybe my treadmill will do. However, if you were specific to your sport and you need something for CrossFit, like a rower or a skier, then by all means do that. Or if you're really, really into cardio, then splurge on it. For storage, storage is a hard one to pick here. Personally, I'm more mid-range. I want to find something that's going to give me great value for what I'm spending. So when I went through my wall control unit, I think that's a great, great value. $50 a panel is a great deal, in my opinion, to take all of my pieces and put them up on the wall, get them off my floor, keep them out where I can see them and I can use them, and I know exactly where they are every single time. Now, there's other categories like barbell storage, weight storage. It all depends on your gym, but I think that storage is an invaluable piece. And whatever you need to spend on it, spend. But also, you don't need to go crazy like a Rogue Monster storage rack or some of those crazier options that you can do with some of those rep equipment. Lastly, my extras category, motivation, whatever category I decided that was. You can get a lot of great motivation, aesthetics out of something very cheap, right? But if you're like super passionate about music and you want like a home theater system or you want a dedicated sound system, then by all means do it, right? Spend the money on it. If it's worth it to you, it's going to get you down in your basement or out in your garage training, then spend the money, right? So ultimately, when you're building out your gym, okay, there's a lot to weigh cheap versus expensive. I say if you're going to spend the money, just make sure that it's worth the money and you're going to use that equipment. Okay? So, tell me about your builds. Show me your builds. I would love if you comment on the video and you go through your builds. Is it worth it to spend money? Some of the comments already, you spent too much money on your gym. I know. So does my wife. But to me, it's worth it, right? It keeps me training on a day-to-day basis and striving for my goals. So comment, are hardstyle mats the best thing since sliced bread? This guy thinks so, but do you? So leave a comment, leave a like, and if you like what we're doing here at the Bar Gym Reviews, please subscribe. We'll see you next time.